Hey guys, it's Denise from JVI Secret Gardens. Today we're going to talk about carnivorous plants, my favorite. We are going to start with Nepenthes. Nepenthes is one of the species of carnivorous plants that we sell here, and currently we only sell the Nepenthes ventrata. That may change in the future, but right now the care is for this. However, most Nepenthes are going to have a similar care across the species with some little tweaks when you get into really fancy species, highland species, etc. We'll talk specifically about Nepenthes ventrata today. Nepenthes ventrata is a type of tropical pitcher plant. And it's important that we denote tropical pitcher plant because there's 4 different types of pitcher plants. There's North American, South American, tropical, and Australian. So obviously there's going to be wildly different care between those different species. So we want to be very specific. If you mean a tropical pitcher plant to a North American pitcher plant, we sell both. So for the Nepenthes, this obviously tropical plant, it's going to need to stay in warmer weather. So this cannot stay outside over the winter. I'm going to bring this guy in. As for sun, it does not like bright, direct sunlight on its leaves. So if you've got like a covered porch or somewhere else where it's still getting a lot of bright light, but the sun isn't directly hitting it, that's going to be your optimal situation there. These guys like for their soil to stay a little damp, but they don't like to sit in standing water. They will rot that way. So you can hang them and give them a good water, and as soon as you feel that soil start to dry out, give them another water. Or you can set this in a watering tray, but once it absorbs all that water, let it dry out for at least a few hours to a day before rewatering again. Again, you don't want those roots just sitting in that water. So these have some pretty specific care requirements, but if you stick to them, it's very easy. I'm going to show you some of the features of the plant, and then we'll get to those care requirements. These leaves here, instead of growing a flower, this is not a flower, it will grow a flower to reproduce. But we're not talking about flowers. We're talking about this modified leaf structure. At the end of these leaves, it grows this little vine that comes down and forms into this little nub. And you can kind of see the shape, the profile of what will turn into the pitcher there. And we've got a pitcher that just opened. You can see that the lid just popped open, but it was sealed all around that edge up until probably a day or so ago. And then once it fully pops open, the lid will sit like this. And you can see it's got little hairs right over here, which help make it difficult for insects to hang on when they land on it. Causes them to slip and fall down into the pitcher, which is filled with digestive juices. So if there's a little bit of liquid splashing around in your pitchers, that's a good thing. You want that. That's how it eats. So with these guys, the specific care requirements, the water. Your water needs to be under 150 parts per million dissolved solids. That sounds complicated, but you can avoid all that if you just water it with distilled water, rainwater, or if you have a reverse osmosis water system at your house. Here in Donelson, I've tested the water in several places and it came up around 88 parts per million. So if you're in the immediate Clover Hill area around JVI, you can probably use tap water for these, but otherwise you should check before you water regularly. Those dissolved solids will build up in the soil and eventually will kill the plant. So keep with your distilled water, your rainwater, or your reverse osmosis water. Keep it out of direct light. Keep it above roughly 55 degrees. If it drops below that, bring it in the house. These guys, a lot of folks ask us if they're great for pest control. Not really, but they're fun, they're cool, they're interesting. You don't need to fertilize them. They catch their own food. If you really want to fertilize them, I do recommend a seaweed-based fertilizer. I believe we have one of the Neptune fertilizers inside that would work, and then also I use Max C on my carnivorous plants at home. You can order that online. Those are the only fertilizers I'd recommend for these. They don't build up in the soils and the plants don't react poorly to them. So with that being said, that is the Nepenthes ventrata. All right, so our second type of carnivorous plant we're going to talk about, we've only got one left on the lot and it's in a mixed basket, so I'm just going to have to show you the one we've got, is the Sarracenia. This is the North American pitcher plant. This guy's just a baby. You can see growing in here. There's a few pitchers. This one's forming, so is this one. This one hasn't opened yet. Look at that. You can see that nice little profile. It'll eventually form up into that head up there. So the North American pitcher plant, the Sarracenia, is going to have almost the same exact care as the Venus flytrap, which we'll talk about in another segment. These guys need pretty low dissolved solids in their water. So I believe for these guys, they can take below about 100, the 50 to 100 range. Here in Donelson in the Clover Hill area, as we've discussed before, everywhere I've tested has been roughly around 88 parts per million. So you could use tap water, but if you're not in this area, go ahead and get yourself a TDS meter. They're cheap. You can check, make sure you're doing the right thing for them. These guys also will need the distilled water, rainwater, or reverse osmosis water if you don't have tap water that's low enough for these guys. They can handle direct full sun, even here in Tennessee, but they will need to stand in water. So we've got this guy in this big mixed pot, but even if he were in a little pot, we'd want him standing in water all the time. About 1/3 to halfway up the side of the pot if you've got a small pot. These guys need a pot that is made of plastic or glass. You could even use metal, but I wouldn't suggest it in Tennessee because it'll heat up in our summer sun and that might be too much for it. Any sort of material that's going to leach minerals like concrete or clay, that's going to damage the plant over time. So these guys can sit outside 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If it does get super cold, below freezing for extended periods, you may want to cover them up or pull them inside. I've left mine outside for the last 5 or 6 years without covering them or doing anything to them. They're still going strong. They're bigger than ever. These guys do not need to be fertilized. They will feed themselves because much like with the Nepenthes, it's got this little opening here with little hairs. The little hairs are on the underside of his little lid there. And insects that crawl on there can't get a good grip and they slip down into those digestive juices. They also have some digestive juices like the Nepenthes, although not nearly as much, obviously. And don't get grossed out, but if you have these for a while, you'll find them full of ants by the end of summer. They don't require any special food. If you're going to fertilize them, stick with a seaweed-based fertilizer like Max C, or I believe it's called Neptune's Harvest that we have here. I'd have to check on that. But don't use any other kind of fertilizer. That's, again, going to cause that buildup in the soil, buildup in the water that can damage the plant. So full sun, standing in water, check the parts per million in your water, and you're good to go with these guys. Super easy. All right, so this is the Venus flytrap. This is such a cool plant. It's one of my favorites, and their care is so poorly understood, so let's suss it out. These guys are actually from North Carolina. Everyone thinks they're tropical and they need to come in under certain temperatures and they're sensitive to cold, but they're actually from a colder temperature, colder USDA zone than here where we're from in Tennessee. So these guys can handle just about anything our winter here has thrown at them. Much like with the Sarracenias, I leave mine out 24/7, 365. They need to be in full direct sunlight. They have to have it. Setting them on a windowsill, they might last 6 months and then you're going to wonder why it suddenly starts dying. It needs sun, all the sun. When these guys are in full direct sun for a proper amount of time, the insides of these mouths are going to turn bright red. These are just getting to their reddishness. This is a new batch that just came in, so we're just getting them acclimated to the proper conditions. So they're starting to brighten up. They're just not fully there yet. These guys, pretty much same care as the Sarracenia. You want them standing in water about 1/3 to halfway up the side of the pot, standing in water at all times. Again, you're going to want either rainwater, distilled water, or reverse osmosis water. These guys have a more particular requirement for the parts per million that they can handle of dissolved solids in their water. These guys can only handle up to about 50. So even here in Donelson, where we've got pretty good water with very little dissolved solids in it, even our tap water is too much for these guys. Again, it wouldn't kill them immediately, but over time you'd start to wonder why this thing's going downhill. That's why. Set out a bucket, catch some rainwater, go get a $1 jug of distilled water, top up that bowl for these guys. They'll appreciate it. So these are super cool plants. They have these little hairs on the outside, and that's just what they'll eventually use to squeeze together because it's got different types of sensors. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but there's tiny little hairs down inside there, and those little hairs are going to be where it senses if something has gotten caught in it. So we are gonna check it here. Oh, this one might be done. They only have a few snaps in them before they stop. Oh, nope. Oh, he's struggling. He's struggling. He's a slow eater. Let's see if we can get this guy. But once we trigger those hairs, there we go. If it's a new trap and it hasn't been worn out, it's gonna slowly close over that. You see how there's still slightly a gap around there? That's because there's a secondary set of hairs that's down inside that trap that's only triggered by a squirming, struggling insect. And once that happens, it'll completely close and seal around the edges. And that's what allows it to absorb all the nutrients out of the insect. As you saw in the first trap, there's a little like exoskeleton. It'll leave those behind. It sucks out all the juices and the good stuff that it needs, but it'll leave that little exoskeleton in there. You can knock it out if you want to, but like I said, these traps only have 2 or 3 good snaps in them before they start to die off. So when you see them start to die off, they'll start going, these are new, so I don't think we have any to show you right now, but they'll start turning black from the tip backwards. It's okay, it's totally normal. Just like leaves on plants, they don't last forever. They're gonna eventually die off. Totally fine. If you want to snip them off, go right ahead. If you want to leave them until they're black all the way back to the root, not a problem either. These are rhizomatic, so the longer you have them, the more little clusters and rosettes of these things you're going to form. For this first year in this plant, it can totally stay in this pot, won't hurt a thing. By next year, you'll definitely want a bigger pot for it. Again, keep it with plastic or glass. Again, it's not going to leach minerals into the water, which will damage the plant. So full blast sun, 24/7, 365. I can't stress that enough. Let these guys get the light. Much like with the Sarracenia, if it's going to drop below freezing for an extended period of time, you can bring them in for a few days or cover them up with a tarp outside. That's fine. But otherwise, they want to stay outside. In the winter, you can lessen the amount of water they have, throw some in there, let it absorb it, let it stay dry for a few days, top it off. In the summer, you want that constantly standing in water. So those are the basics of the carnivorous plant care for the 3 different species that we currently sell. And if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help you with that. And come on in and take a look at these guys and get yourself a Venus flytrap.